Grace and peace, everybody. We are back. Happy Thursday to you all. We got a busy day planned, but I got a very interesting question for you. The Candace Owens versus the Macron case. Is it possible? Is it possible that the most recent UFC fight, UFC 250 at the White House, is it possible the UFC fight might have derailed the Candace Owens versus the Macron, or Macron's versus the Candace Owens trial or case? I know you're like, Jason, what in the world are you talking about? Don't worry. I'm not losing my mind. I have an interesting theory. Well, rather, my guest has an interesting theory. So let me bring my guest up in here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Y'all know who he is. It's Nick Brooks in the building. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Jay. How are you doing?
Oh, quite well, man. How's California treating you?
Hey, it's a gray day today, but hopefully it won't be tomorrow, and it's still beautiful. And we got a lot of World Cup events going on in Southern California.
That's what I was going to ask. Okay, yeah. have you been bitten by the World Cup shenanigans? Are you going out there doing? You have? Okay.
No,
Are you out there?
I haven't really gone to a game. I mean, it's at SoFi. It's just those tickets are so expensive. Like I'm not comfortable paying those prices, truthfully. But I keep up with it, and I watch on my laptop and stuff like that. So it's fun.
Nick, I met you, Nick. You're too young. You're too handsome, too virile. No laptop watching. You must go watch it at the local pub or the fan fest. Or whatever like that. And you have to send me pictures. If you don't send me pictures, Nick, we're not going to be friends anymore. I need you out there. We need you out there doing some man on the street. You got to get out there and meet the people, man.
For sure.
No, I think that I have found it to be hilarious, man. I have to admit, when my child was talking to me about this, my eyes were kind of rolling back in my head like, what are you talking about? I have to say it's hilarious. I think it's comical. So yes, you must go.
I really enjoyed, when the Iran team came and getting to see some of the, Iranian Americans in LA, because I used to work for an Iranian American in LA, actually. Nice. And so, getting to see that interaction, it's and brought here, it was very unique.
I agree. And like I said in a video earlier today, like we have tourists all the time, but all the tourists coming for one particular event is so different than people who want to sightsee, and people are going on cruises, and people are visiting family. Like no, everybody's coming for these doggone matches, and I think they're hilarious, man. And finding out the things that people experiencing Americana in real time is kind of wild. I don't know if you know about Buc-ee's. You're from Tennessee. You know about Buc-ee's?
I've never been to a Buc-ee's. I think that's more of a do they have any Buc-ee's in Tennessee?
I know we got some in Georgia. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna look it up. Somebody's gonna tell me.
I thought they had some running through Oklahoma and Arkansas, maybe Texas, maybe that part of the South or the Midwest, if you really.
Yeah. Okay, now I gotta find out. Well, anyway, Buc-ee's is crazy. I was actually gonna go today, but my daughter said she didn't want to go, so we might go tomorrow. Because I just think they're hilarious. I think Buc-ee's are comedy. So Europeans experiencing this, which is basically a Walmart, Bass Pro Shop gas station, is crazy work.
And I love the videos online. I saw this guy from Japan eating Texas barbecue and giving it 10-star ratings. It was very entertaining.
Yeah, and I have to admit that barbecue did look kind of good, though. It did look kind of good. I don't know if it was 10 stars, but hey, I have to verify it. You know what? I will verify it whether or not it was 10 stars, because it did look pretty good.
Yeah, volunteer.
Absolutely. I will do that. I'll take one for the team. All right, Nick, we got to do this, man. We got to talk about this. You called me yesterday and told me this, and I have to admit, that was the wildest. I was like, I've never thought of that. Or rather, you text me. I apologize. You text me about it. And I was like, I don't think I ever thought about that. Let me bring the clip in real quick, and then we can lay the land from here. Let me bring this clip in here, ladies and gentlemen. You may have seen UFC 250, which happened this past Sunday, matter of fact, this past Sunday. Let me bring this in real quick, and I'm going to give Nick the floor after this, real quick.
Lastly, Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America?
All right. That clip right there is what Nick called me about and said, this tacitly, he said, that statement right there may have thrown off the Macron case. Nick, go ahead and explain this to him.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, kind of a quick background before we kind of introduce that theory. As you know, the Macrons brought a complaint for defamation. Candace Owens made a motion to dismiss against that complaint, and it was based on the basis of procedural grounds and improper venue, based on my recollection, and nothing substantive or meritorious or going to the truth of the matter asserted, nothing of that nature. And so, right now. I think with respect to UFC 250, the defamatory allegations in the Macron case are that Candace Owens called Brigitte Macron a man, and she's a woman, biologically, according to all the paperwork and documentation. Like, there's theories that in France, there was reporters on it and they were buried, and political actions. Like, I get all that. But right now, we're operating from the factual theory that it's a woman bringing a complaint for having been called a man, and she says that that was defamatory to her reputation. And obviously, we've discussed in previous episodes where there are certain theories that I think could be deficient, and I have actually brought up in the past that, is it defamatory just to call a woman a man? I'm not so sure. However, ultimately that's going to be a question of fact, and questions of fact are generally resolved for juries. And so
Right.
If you can get a jury on this case, like in a state like Delaware, well, what would they decide on this? And I think with respect to the way I saw this Hokett case was prior, when I said, is it, defamatory to call a woman a man? And I was like, I'm not so sure it is. However, after this event that happened at the White House and, Hokett did that, there was a lot of people taken aback and, oh my gosh, you can't say that. I mean, I saw a bunch of YouTube reaction videos, basically abhorring the comment and saying, how dare you speak that way about Michelle Obama? And I mean, ultimately it is heinous and stuff. And Michelle Obama is a strong woman too. I think can survive, these types of statements. And so, yeah, I like, it really got me thinking, okay, now we have another actual example of a woman being called a man. So let's evaluate it. It's the exact same factual scenario we're dealing with the Macrons and Michelle Obama. So let's go down that. And for me, there's a lot of people that say no, or they defend Hokett's right to say that. And it's like, okay, well, if you're going to defend Hokett's right to say that, then you have to defend Candace Owens' right to say that at some level.
So let's make sure we have it right. So in this example, let me pull it back up. Hokett, who is the UFC fighter, and again, I feel so out of touch with UFC. I haven't been paying attention in some time. Hokett would be playing the role of Candace Owens.
Yes, because
the person is making the claim.
The potential defendant, if you will. Like if we had a hypothetical case, because he's the one that's alleged to have made the statements and obviously, allegations, right? I mean, it's right there in front of you on video. So yeah, he would be the proper defendant in this case. And I mean, we could get creative and say, well, let's sue UFC because he's a representative of UFC. Let's sue President Trump because he's the one that allowed it on the White House. Let's sue the White House. I mean, there's all kinds of theories we could go down. But I don't think, Michelle Obama is going to push a lot of these points. I think she's probably going to want to set a lot of this behind her. But I think, I don't think it's just for Michelle Obama to have to grit her teeth and go through this while the Macrons can clutch their pearls, in court and claim this is reputationally harmful. And then also don't think for left-wing people in the country to be so abhorred by, when it's said against Michelle Obama and stuff, and they want to go after Candace Owens. But you can defame Erica Kirk if you want. There's a lot of hypocrisy on each side that's going on. And so, I mean, that's why you have law and order and the rule of law that governs us. So we have like objective, independent standards that hopefully aren't partisan.
So in this example, and if you're jumping in, thank you to everybody who's just jumped in. So Nick and I are theorizing this gentleman right here, Hokett, who's a UFC fighter, fought at UFC 250 this past weekend. He, if you hadn't heard it, he gave he won his bout, of course, and he gave an interesting post-fight interview in the ring where he calls Michelle Obama a man. And so Nick and I Well, Nick reached out to me and said he wonders if this would actually hurt or help, or would it work in favor of Candace Owens' case, the Macron case against Candace Owens, because he has tacitly done the exact same thing that Candace Owens has done, which I think is a very interesting. I agree, actually.
Yeah, and I mean,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, the only thing I was going to clarify, Jay Witt, is just like, I mean, it could help, potentially like the Macron's case, if people in Delaware, let's say, are sympathetic to Michelle Obama and her circumstances. Well, then that, and suddenly an event like this occurs, and then they're like, oh my gosh, this is actually something we should be sympathetic to. So if I mean, and sometimes you got to look at things in multiple ways, and you can have the exact same fact patterns go spin two different ways. And so here you could have it spin where, oh my gosh, the people of Delaware are more sympathetic and are more willing to side with the Macrons. However, on the other side, you could say, look, this is not a case. Look, you got people calling Michelle Obama a man, and she's not suing. Why are we going to hold the Macrons, case in any merit or reputable, so that's right. Kind of how I can see the spin each way.
Okay. So, all right. So if Michelle Obama does nothing, because I mean, this has been floating out there just as long as, it's a tale as old as time. So this is not new for somebody to say that about Michelle Obama. So it's been out there. I don't ever think I've heard them ever address it or like try to refute it or do anything of that nature. And definitely haven't heard the Obama suing anybody. So if they continue in that and they just let it go, water under the bridge, how do you think that would, so you're saying, how would that affect the Macron case in your opinion?
I think it just would affect the Macron case from ultimately to find the comments defamatory is a question of fact. Questions of fact are supposed to be sent to the jury to resolve.
Correct.
And so if you're able to present to the jury evidence that statements of this nature are not defamatory, and let's say maybe point to like the White House incident, because there's national politicians' wives involved, for example, I think that's a reasonable basis to say, hey, this actually isn't defamatory, or it is defamatory. Look, so I mean, you could go either way with it. Like, and that's kind of the beauty of like argumentation and logic and theorizing. Like, you can be creative and you're not just locked into good or bad. And so, and truthfully, it's unknown. I don't really have like an answer on how the people of Delaware or the particular jurors there, right, could decide that case.
Okay, so let's just say to keep the theory going, what if the Obamas decide to sue Holkett for this? So they decide they're going to sue him, and they file a lawsuit. How do you think? And it's very similar in your reading and understanding. Is very similar to what we read in the Macron versus Owens. How do you think that would affect the Owens case?
It would, in theory, it shouldn't really affect it so much like, that. And I think there's practical reasons you should think it should affect it via, you have to sell it to the jury, and the jury might know of these other stuff, right? Like there's always that juror element. I mean, that's why our judicial system, ultimately, a lot of these decisions come down to the people, and, the jury kind of safeguards the law application from being arbitrary and capricious, And so I think I think I don't think the Obamas are actually going to sue under this. So. But if they did, I think it's going to come down to the same questions we've discussed in the Macron case, such that is calling a woman a man inherently defamatory? And I'm not so sure that it is. But, some people, I mean, you have these liberal minds that are a little bit conservative, oddly enough, in their own heads, where it's like they're kind of they're like, yes, it actually is defamatory to call a woman that. And it's like, well, I'm not so sure it'd be defamatory to call a man a woman or something like that. Like you see James Tallarico and stuff like that in Texas. Like, I think, what's his name? One of the White House guys called him like the first transgendered politician or something from Texas. So it's like,
I hadn't heard that one. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think that's going to be, as defamatory. So maybe we just declare that women's reputations should be more protected from gender misclassification than men. I think that actually would be, quite frankly, a realistic possibility to sell here. And I think conservative audiences would buy that. And I think potentially certain liberal audiences would buy that framework as well.
Interesting. So do you think it matters? Okay, so we bring up Holkett again. Let's say that Holkett has been talking about this for months, maybe even years, talking about Michelle Obama. He's done, he's done a podcast about it, maybe wrote a book about it. He's been talking about and done quote unquote research and study that he really believes that Michelle Obama's a man. Do you think?
I mean, it doesn't matter.
So it's not just one.
If you're right, like it comes down to, I mean, actual beliefs, not necessarily what we're discussing in some sense. Like, because the thing is like that's why we have these like termination letters, right? Like, let's say you believe Nick Brooks is a crook as a lawyer. Like, you believe he's embezzling money, or you name the allegation, right?
Okay.
And
what are you up to, Nick?
Right. Hey, no, please, nothing like that. I did not. But like if you go around saying stuff like that, I mean, in theory, that's harming my reputation. I could sue you. I don't know what going back. What was your original question on that?
So I was just wondering, basically, if the volume of, because it seems like this is a one-off statement. I don't know much about this fighter, so I don't know if he's said this multiple times or this is literally the first time he said it.
Yes,
but I was saying, what if he said it multiple times versus one time? Does it matter? Does the volume matter at all?
He has a history of actually saying that comment.
Oh, he does?
He said it multiple times throughout his UFC career, just as kind of a form of like being edgy and getting, people to see him like, I mean, because, people find it, disgusting. And a lot of fighting history has been built on like, ethnic tensions or things of that nature. Like go back to the early 1900s boxing, like the Irish going against the Italians. It was the people versus the people, right? I mean, when we sent what's his name to Germany to fight that one guy, and he was a Black American, we took pride in that, and there was a lot of that. So I mean, I think that comes up. But look, with respect to his knowledge, he knows that she's a woman, right? He's doing it purely as a form of insult. And I think if you are willing to deny that premise, I think you're blind to the facts in front of you selectively, and you're not blind. You're just really trying to be insulting by not giving credit where it's due to Michelle Obama because you don't like her political views. That's really what it comes down to when you break it down. I mean, to me, I think I can sell that to a jury, right? More than the other side could. So yeah, I think ultimately, like we've discussed, Michelle Obama is a public figure, so the actual malice standard would apply. And so he has to prove that the statement was made, with knowledge of its falsity or with reckless disregard for the truth. I think both of those standards are going to be satisfied here. He absolutely, I think, has knowledge that she's a woman and not actually a man. I think there would be plenty of evidence to show that. And to kind of, I mean, you want to entertain it like objectively, because like you have to do the intellectual work to denounce kind of this, if you will. But it is kind of an insult to have to objectively analyze that in some way, but it is what it is. And then with respect to like reckless disregard for the truth, I mean, I would say, I think that standard's pretty well satisfied. If we could just say, hey, she's married to Barack Obama. There's been no credible evidence in the past of her being a man. There's no alleged images, for example. There's no floating hidden medical records or, old girlfriends or boyfriends talking about certain things, so I think there's like just lack of credibility there. So I think, he's definitely going to satisfy both of those standards. But ultimately, if you're the Obamas, like, right, we've discussed civil litigation. Like when you sue somebody, you open the door to discovery. It makes the case more public. It gives more credence to the allegations, because sometimes the best thing you can do is just ignore people and, and not let things bother you all the time. Because if you let things like bother you as a public figure, you'll kind of like derail your own public career. You'll kind of go crazy.
I can dig that. So, because somebody did ask, and I was going to ask you this: what about where President Trump or another elected official is being called very horrible things?
Hey, like Michael, have you seen the Republican Party insult Democrats for the last 10 years? Have you watched them? Like, you remember the QAnon conspiracies? That's all it was that part of the country calling the others PDFs. So Like, let's be real about it. We can sit here and have dishonest conversations because we don't want to hurt our political feelings. But like, to say one side is calling the other PDFs and the other side's not, that's just, I will sell to a jury that I'm right on that and you're not. So we can go down that route, but I think I'll win.
No, and I think he was, and I'm not speaking for Michael specifically, but I'm just wondering, because we've seen these type of things back and forth, would that, again, somebody's just going to be like, yeah, last Tuesday we were saying the same thing about you. This is just our week for you to say it about us. So you know what? We're not going to worry about it. Would that possibly even play a role in how? Well, I don't think the Obamas are going to sue this guy, but do you think that would even play a role, even in the Macron case, maybe, where look, everybody says foul stuff about everybody else. Nick says terrible things about Jason. Jay Witt says terrible things about Nick. It is what it is. Keep it moving. Do you think that would play a role?
Yeah, and I mean, too, like there's always the aspect of just like we discussed dealing with juries, and a lot of lawyers lose sight of that. Like you always have to remember that ultimately whatever case you take, like if you're not able to settle it at some level, it could go to a jury. And then are you able to convince the jury of your case? And, sometimes, I mean, juries are normal people. They're just like you and me. Have you ever been called for jury service?
I have not. Well, let me take that back.
Wow.
I was early on. I was a long time ago, better than 20 years ago, but I've never gotten called again since then. But that was it. But
okay, no. I've been called for it like multiple times. Like it's kind of annoying how many times I've been called. I served as a juror, literally as a licensed attorney. It was crazy.
Wait,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, okay. I could not believe I wasn't struck in that case. But yeah, I mean, one thing you learned though is juries are literally just normal people. They have normal thoughts. Like you go into the jury room and they don't have like a huge knowledge of like certain legal standards, or how to analyze the law. And so your job as an attorney at trial is to really help them understand the law and apply the facts properly to the law. And the judge is just kind of there as an objective referee. So if you start trying to cross lines into evidence and, for example, introduce improper character evidence, because a lot of prosecutors want to do that of like defendants or plaintiffs to defendants or to witnesses, right? Like, the judge can always be there to just say, no, that's an improper evidence, move. You can't do that. It's almost like a game, right? Like you got to make certain moves in certain ways. And so that's what the judge is there to properly do. And so, yeah, with keeping your eye on the jury, I just think in a case like this, there's such a risk that, the other side's attorney could just sell. This is what are we here for? Are we really going to impose millions of dollars of damages on this type of statement? Like this would be a misapplication of the law. And I would sell it as a misapplication of the law and the jury just trying to be political and impose some type of political judgment on, the defendant. And I would you don't want to insult the jury and make, and inflame them and make them maybe decide against you, but you got to somehow convince them to like stay away from their political leanings on it and to just try to see it as a little bit more maybe of a frivolous case.
I got you. No, and I agree with you. I don't think that I personally don't think this is going to have an effect on the Macron case, but if it did pop up, I wouldn't totally be surprised. I do want to find out from you, however, where the Macron case is going. So we pulled up the docket. We were talking about it in text message, and I apologize if you can't see this you're in the chat. If the mods could drop the link to the docket. All right. Technically, they have done nothing on this case all of 2026. Am I right? They've not done any. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, they really the case is, there was a motion to dismiss. When was that filed? October, December, or around, I think it was October that motion was filed. And so it's been on the calendar, since there was, I think the first, hearing was in April, and then it was continued to June 22nd. And then there was another continuance, and now it's going to be heard on July 27th. And if you scroll to the top there, if you scroll to the top, you'll see even higher than that. There it is.
There it is right there. Motion to dismiss, July 27th. Good night. Hold on, let me zoom in so y'all can see it.
And that's
Yeah,
very much normal in civil litigation. Like, you know what I mean? Like the cases get continued all the time, quite frankly, because judges have the power, inherent power, as you know, kind of controlling the courts to set and continue these hearings as they see fit. I mean, that could be subject to like, you know, an abuse of discretion, but good luck trying to get an appellate court to overturn a 30-day continue, you know, on the second trial.
Right.
Like, I mean, some cases get continued over and over. So this is not really an abuse of discretion. This is simply the judge doing it. Not really sure of the reason why he did it, but you know, that's sometimes the way civil litigation works. You don't always get.
He was at the UFC fight. He was at the UFC fight. He's conflicted. No, I'm just kidding.
He was going to tell him to file another brief with more substantive merit allegations, right?
Probably so.
Dispute what we were talking about with calling a woman a man.
All right, where was the motion? Because they really truly, the motion to dismiss was the actual last thing of any substance that was done. You said it was October. I think you might be right. Judicial review. Nope. Motion to dismiss, September 12th. There it is right there.
Yep. Okay.
So that was the last thing that they've done. So that was September. So it's been better than, I mean, we're cruising on almost 10 months.
Well, they did file their reply brief too, and that was on, I think, January 9th.
Yeah, but that's not, you're correct on that. So you would say that would probably be the last substantive
brief, a reply brief and answering brief. I saw two of them. Okay.
Yeah, but nothing really for the armchair legal experts here in the best live chat on the internet. We're like, nothing really has happened since I'll give you January 9th, but nothing really has happened since January 9th. And that was actually just filing a brief from previous. So you can't ask for the judge to kind of move it along a little faster, even in this case.
You know, you could file like a motion for emergent application, but like you would look so like dumb in a way.
Okay.
Because like you'd be, I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's like you're just looking pushy. It's like the judge is going to look at you and be like, yo, what are you here for? You know, like, I mean, that's just my own personal take I'm giving you, but like you would just be kind of pressing the judge. And it's like, listen, you guys need to respect the court process more than the court process needs to respect. I mean, you know, you want the court process to respect you as parties, and they do their best to do that. And it's not like they don't, but you know, I think you can't just push the courts because, oh, your case is more important than everyone else's, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to understand 6 weeks. Well, or in this situation, it's 5 weeks, but they just keep kicking the can down the road. Because I got a bad feeling they're going to, after July 25th, let me pull it back up on here. On July 25th, they're going to roll up and be like, we're going to kick it down till after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we don't know. Like that, man. It could literally be continued again, and that is not off the table.
Wow. Okay.
So, I mean, you'll have plenty of commentary, I suppose, to go back and forth on it. But you know what I think could happen, quite frankly, in the time that, you know, there's like this next, hearing date is July 27th. I just wonder if Candace Owens and the Macrones will settle this case. And I just wonder what like those terms would be, such that, you know, like does each side walk away with nothing and everybody pays their own attorney's fees and everybody just moves on? You know, I think that's a very, quite frankly, a possibility. No side's going to want to pay the other. I could see something like that.
So what would be, okay, all right, here we go. The Nick Brooks bat phone rings and you are being asked to negotiate for Candace Owens. And you're asked to negotiate, you know, figure this out before July 27th. What would you recommend that they do? Candace Owens to the Macrones.
Yeah, just for, you know, like defense purposes, right? I'll just say the average person in Candace Owens' situation, you know, more general, I suppose.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I would just say, look, you know, wait it out. Like, this is what the courts do. This is very normal. I know it's frustrating maybe if she's frustrated, or he or she, whoever this is,
right.
You know, but that's just a part of civil litigation, and, you know, pack in because this is going to be a long ride unless you guys settle.
So if they said, okay, whoever this person is, it's not Candace Owens, but they are Candace Owens. What would you say they do if they say, okay, yeah, we want to settle. We're tired of this. What would you recommend that they propose as a settlement to this person, not Candace Owens?
Well, I mean, you could have, right, Candace Owens' attorneys reach out and say, are you willing to dismiss this case? And no side bears their attorneys, or each side bears their own attorney's fees. But plaintiff side may just say no, right? Like they're going to be like, no, give us, tens of thousands or, dollars or something like that. And then, it's likely that the settlement provisions would include, some type of confidentiality and non-disparagement type of language. And that may be the incentive, right? Maybe, that Owens side you mentioned, they offer, they offer to do, hey, look, we'll sign a settlement where each side bears their own attorney's fees and each side just walks away. And in the settlement agreement, there will be a confidentiality and non-disparagement provision. Now, I like I said, I don't think plaintiffs are going to be willing to sign something like that in a case like this. But, you never know. Like, I just think they're going to want certain money put on the table, or they're going to want to engage in discovery. But if I were the on as a Wednesday side, right, defense side, I would try my best to get some type of motion. They already filed a motion to dismiss. So I don't think you can just file another motion to dismiss right now. I think they literally kind of waive these certain substantive arguments.
Right.
But I would say with respect to the substantive arguments, go ahead and file a motion to dismiss and try to dismiss the defamation claims on the basis that calling a woman a man is not defamatory language and cannot be reasonably perceived by a juror that way, and have it decided as a matter of law. And when you have it decided as a matter of law, the judge is the one that throws it out. And so it does not ever go to a jury. The other side would clearly oppose that and say, no, this is an improper matter to decide as a matter of law. The question regarding calling a woman a man being defamatory is quintessentially a factual question that must be decided by a jury. And so if you do dismiss this case, we will appeal it as, an improper dismissal and have it remanded to continue. Got it.
All right. This is going to be interesting. So in your mind, they're going to just have to wait until July 27th.
Yes, exactly. And this is just on the procedural stuff, right? Like this is venue. I think, as the way it stands, I think Delaware probably has venue in this case. And so I think Delaware, because it's just a venue question. It's just procedural venue stuff. It's not merits. I think there was a really, a flaw with the attorneys not filing, that meritorious substantive grounds in their motion to dismiss. I would have done that.
I got you. No, I was wondering that because I just want the thing to get going. Like, okay, let's get to the substance of this case and look up again, and they reschedule it. I actually had a friend of mine who was doing a countdown to the 22nd at 10 o'clock when it was supposed to be determined. And lo and behold, they decided to kick the can 4 days beforehand, which is crazy work. All right.
Yeah.
Where does it say the 27th? It says now on the top of the document, at the top of the docket, it says right here. So here's the docket. You scroll down to the top, case event schedule, motion to dismiss is moved to July 27th.
Yeah, and also one of your commenters makes a wonderful point. I just saw it. Like there is a potential defense in a case like this where, let's say Candace Owens and Hokett could argue in their defense that by calling a woman a man, you're not really saying that the woman is a biological man. You're really just calling the woman ugly. And calling somebody ugly is not a factual statement, and they would argue that no reasonable person would interpret their statements as, truly arguing that they're biologically male. It's more or less an underhanded jab at them saying they're ugly and look like men.
I can see that. Okay. How would you make that argument though? Yeah. How would you piece that apart or take that apart? That saying that somebody is a woman is a man is basically saying that this woman is ugly. Right?
Yeah,
Would
so
you
I
have
mean, the
to?
way I would look at it is like generally, men have certain masculine physical features and women have certain feminine physical features. And so when you say that certain women are men, what you're really doing is say they have male physical features, and that is perceived as not attractive, in essence ugly. And so
Mhm.
by calling certain women men, you're not really saying they're biologically men. You're just saying that you're ugly or that you have masculine physical features, and that's just deemed not attractive and insulting socially.
I got you. So, okay, so let's go back to the volume question then. So earlier I was kind of saying well, we all know that Candace has done full on, 8-part series about Brigitte Macron being a guy, right? She's done deep dives into everything, all her family,
Yeah, yeah,
calling
yeah.
in question. So there's a lot of, it's not just,
Great point.
one little ring comment. Cause I don't know how many times this guy has said it. I really don't know. I don't know much
Yes.
about this UFC fighter, but if all his shtick is to say Michelle Obama's a dude, if that's his only thing, he hasn't done any podcasts. He hasn't done deep dives, interviewing family members and all this kind of craziness. That's different than Candace, who, literally a lot of ink has been spilled with her deep dives into it. So that's what I'm saying. Would the volume change your perspective on that at all? Or the type of things that are being said? Maybe that's what I should have said. The types of things.
Yeah, ultimately, and I think you make a great point with Candace Owens having been more specific regarding the allegations. It wasn't
It's
just
more than just saying you ugly, right?
yes,
It's more her
exactly.
saying dude looks like a lady, right?
It was like more into the background and showing photos and things of that nature, and really
Identity theft.
selling really
Right.
selling more of a gender misclassification rather than just ugly. So I think that's a great counterpoint, and I would definitely bring that up if I were on the other side, if they tried to frame it that way. But yeah, ultimately too, I think there's an argument where it could, maybe Owens' lawyers could just say, hey, I know this is really ugly background dive, but it's really just fun content for people that want to hate on certain, political figures, right? And we just want to have messy, fun little stuff. And you can't, it's a stretch in a way, but again, there's a lot of factual questions where it's just we got to deal with, is this defamatory? Just calling a woman a man or even a man a woman. Some jurors may be susceptible to, hey, would you feel that this is equal if a man was called a woman? If we, and if not, why are you deciding it this way? So I think there could be an element of that. So we have to deal with is the nature of this statement defamatory? And then also, did that cause reputational damages? So you have a causation question. So if the Macrons face reputational loss, I would say that the Owens attorneys would respond, yeah, because you guys are terrible politicians in France, not because what she said about you, right? That would be
Right,
a
I like that.
causation problem, saying why they suffered reputational loss. And then also, too, we have a question of, did they actually even suffer reputational loss, right? What are they showing as damages? So it's within the, element 1, 2, 3, 4 that you got to meet within defamation, there's a lot of key questions that Owens has the ability to raise certain points, not defamatory. I didn't cause that. You didn't actually suffer reputational loss, and I think they're good defenses too. And then too, even hey, this is just a creative form of calling you ugly and, insulting our political opposition, which I think people would be sympathetic to as well.
No, I got you. Now, because a lot of people have said it in the chat. She said far more, but I'm glad that we at least understand there's one little off statement, or you make this off statement, but then the deep dive again, because Candace has accused them of crimes, identity theft, stealing identities, as I said before, PDF behavior. There's been a lot of things besides just saying dude looks like a lady.
Yes,
there's been a lot of things. So yeah, so she said quite a bit. So I don't know if they're really an apple to apple with the UFC fighter, Candace.
True. No, great point.
On the basis, Candace said Macron is a dude. Hokett said that Michelle Obama's a dude. I think that water under the bridge, leave it alone. But Candace has said so much worse as well. So I think that's something that to be considered. But shout out for sure. What we got right here? Thank you so much, Michelle. What is the difference between what Candace did and grocery store tabloid headlines? Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Now, hold on, Michelle, for 1 second. Thank you so much for the 5. Now, Nick, he's very young, so he might not know about tabloids. So I'm gonna have to give him like
on the shelf when you go to like Food Line or something like that.
Absolutely.
And I remember seeing, and it would always be something entertaining, like
crazy.
Oh my God. And the letters are always in big yellow font or something.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Take it back. Nick knows what we're talking about. So what's the difference though, Nick? Would you say, is there really a difference between Candace and Hochul, the UFC fighter, and just the national whatever tabloid?
No, not really all that much. In fact, I think that's a really, sophisticated way to look at it, and a lot of good insight to be drawn from analogizing it to those tabloids, purely because tabloids are generally there just to be bought for their headline and that captures your attention. And I think that's a great way to look at it. And, ultimately, if you're going to follow tabloids as journalism, well, you're probably going to be very misguided, No,
I agree with you 100%. But no, I think this is definitely a good conversation. I think it is far more than just, a freedom of speech issue. I do think there's, I think my guy, the UFC guy, maybe he can get away with freedom of speech. I don't know. Do you watch UFC? Do you
Not
watch?
Really. I mean, I when I was I've seen a couple fights, but fighting sports, I've never really kind of been into it. I was thinking about this. I'm much more to watch like the NFL. Like I'm a huge football fan. So it's like, I'd watch NFL, college, even high school football, if it was on, it's just kind of fun to watch. But I mean, I really enjoyed watching, some of the finals this year in the NBA. And I don't really catch myself watching a ton of baseball, but I'll be honest with you. If you told me that I have the option to watch a fighting sport or baseball, I'd probably go watch baseball. And
really?
We have the Padres here in San Diego, and they're just the most famous love team here. So it's I would definitely go support them, for example.
No, I got you. No, I've been to several UFC. I used to watch them quite a bit. No, I would watch UFC. I would. I would. It's just fast, man. It just moves fast. In 25 minutes, no matter what, you're gonna have somebody's hand raised, and and if it's a good one, it's gonna be a very messy hand raise. So
they're very good athletes.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah, I know. To be that in shape and the cardio it requires to be a fighter, and to make weight, for example, what you have to do from a resistance training aspect to a cardio aspect, so those athletes, and it's just a one-on-one, you gotta suffer through months of training solo, on your own. And it's kind of just you versus you in a way. So it's I find fighting sports really interesting, in that aspect from the personal side. It's just, it's kind of tough to follow for me because I don't really always recognize the names, and guys are coming up, and, there'll be a new champion every few years and stuff. So, I know the NFL though, right? You got the Titans are good 5 years ago, and now they're awful, right? Now they're going to be better, but teams rise and fall.
Always next season.
Stability.
Right. And y'all might not know this, but Nick is a prolific fantasy football aficionado.
Yes.
He almost had your boy signing up for fantasy football. He explained it quite well. I didn't know much about it. Nick broke it down to me when I was out there in San Diego. It was actually pretty informative. Now, Nick, I am going to say this, though, Nick. On behalf of the best live chat on the internet, you must send me some pictures of you going out there, getting involved in the FIFA fanfic. Do not let us down, Nick.
All right.
Get out there.
I'm definitely going to do that now with your challenge. I appreciate you doing that.
Oh, we need you to get out there, Nick. Don't be watching on the screen. Get out there and meet some people. You even have my permission. The deacon is giving you permission to get you a little beverage of choice, maybe with something colorful with a little umbrella in it or something.
Nice little cocktail. Hey, let me tell you this. There's going to be a lot of good photos after 2 cocktails or so, in the World Cup.
Then there we go. Then I want the two. Right. Don't send me any pre 2-drink pictures. I want the second drink pictures only.
Yes.
Crazy. I absolutely love it. Do you know who's playing in San Diego? Do you know by any chance?
So we don't actually have any of the main games here. Like we just had some like friendly matchups prior that the teams were training for. Like I saw,
Gotcha.
in fact, Columbia played, who was it? Jordan here in Snapdragon Stadium. I didn't end up going to it just because the tickets were like $200 for the minimum. I was like, I love Colombia. I've learned a lot of Spanish there. It's the country I've visited most in Latin America, but hey, Viva Colombia, but I don't know if I'm going to spend time much there.
Como se dice, I'm going to save my $200. Viva Colombia, but I'm going to save my $200.
Viva Colombia, voy a ahorrar mi $200.
There you go. I knew we could. And another thing about Nick that you don't know, Nick is fluent in Spanish. He's crushing it. So shout out to Nick for sure. All right. If you don't know, Nick you want to tell them a little bit about yourself just in case somebody jumped in that doesn't know who you are, Nick, because I want to make sure people know who you are. Go ahead, my friend.
Yes. So, I'm Nick Brooks. I'm an attorney in Southern California. I was born and raised in Tennessee. I attended Rutgers Law School, and now in California as an attorney. I've been licensed for 3 years. I practice primarily civil litigation. Civil litigation crosses over with a ton of subjects, though, which I really enjoy. And litigation is more or less just arguing points back and forth. How can one be creative? And so I just really enjoy that type of analytical back and forth. And it's just something that I take a lot of pride in.
He's an excellent lawyer. There's somebody else in Southern California.
Okay, hey, very nice.
But well, Nick, I appreciate it, man. Thank you, man. This was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward. We're gonna probably we've done this before. We've had several team ups in the past, and we need to make this. We need to get back on the schedule and have you back on and talk about. There's a ton of other things to talk about. So I know. And we could probably go on for 2 hours if we wanted to, but I want to make sure that I respect your time. But if we could, let's maybe run it back next week or something and talk about some of the other cases that are out there floating around, wanting our attention and Nick's 2 cents for sure. I am going to do this though. For an appeal, let's just say there was a case that ended last Tuesday. I'm not saying that I know any cases. Let's just say there was a case, and it was kind of a big case in one of the southern states. And the case ended last Tuesday. Appeals, in order for an appeal to be proper, we have to wait for the transcripts and everything else to be filed from that case. Am I correct?
Generally, that's a really, kind of a state appellate procedural aspect, like what transcripts.
Let's pretend it's like a state that's like Existe. It's kind of like a really big state.
Discuss it specifically if you'd like. Right. No problem there.
Well, I was just wondering about the appeals, in particular capital cases like a murder case. You can't just in Texas. You can file that you plan on appealing the verdict, but you still have to wait for all of basically everything to close down from that particular trial, aka the transcripts and all that kind of stuff like that. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to start an appeal tomorrow because there's still some other procedural things that need to get shut down. Am I correct?
Well, just kind of 2 points to make. One, as I mentioned, it's all governed by the state appellate procedural law, so each state could potentially be different. And generally, though, in cases like these, you have a judgment that's issued by the court. And so in the criminal context, that's going to be guilty or not guilty, or you take the plea, for example. But let's not even get into pleas. But, you get the judgment and it's guilty or not guilty. Here, in that Carmelo Anthony case, we had a guilty judgment. And so you're generally required to file a notice of appeal within a certain number of days of receiving the written judgment. And I believe that written judgment has already been issued. And it generally finds, matters of fact and law. I guess when the jury signs, like I'd have to kind of observe each state truthfully and understand that I'm saying everything correct. But I think, in that case, as long as they file their notice of appeal, and I suppose in their notice of appeal state potentially the grounds on why they're going to appeal the case. I don't know if that's required to state the grounds at that time. But that's just the general procedure on how you would appeal.
Okay. No. And now somebody asks, as I see the question in here. Oh, shout out to Mexichica. She's been a member for 7 months. Candace, Candace, we're further than just a
Indeed.
statement.
Mhm.
She's saying she is her brother and she's part of the MK Ultra and et cetera. Right. And thank you so much, Mexichica. And I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. Um, I I've heard about this case. I don't know much about it. So I wouldn't be I would be actually surprised if you knew much about it, Nick. Have you heard about this case?
Yeah, so I remember when it first broke news a couple years ago, and
Mhm.
Anthony, had allegedly, stabbed these individuals, and he's now been found guilty. So I
Well,
don't even have to say the
no,
word
I'm sorry.
allegedly anymore.
Yeah. Go
You
ahead. I'm
know,
sorry. Mhm.
so yeah, no, but ultimately, like he was tried for, that killing of that individual. He was found guilty by the Texas, court through the jury system and things of that nature. The only issue that I believe that his defense is going to try to appeal the case is the fact that I believe in the jury pool when they first started, there was a certain number of black jurors and they had just struck them. And, and I'll say this, the Supreme Court, now it's a 6-3 conservative in favor of Supreme Court. So, and, Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party, they're the ones who passed the Civil War amendments and the 14th Amendment and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And it requires that the state is not permitted to discriminate, on the basis of color and things of that nature. And so
Right.
what we're going to see in this type of appeal, but before I get into that, I just want to quickly mention the point that in a recent Supreme Court decision, I would have to look up the exact name. I wish I had it on the top of my head. But the Supreme Court just recently reiterated the importance of not striking jurors on the basis of ethnicity or color and things of that nature. And
Right.
if you're going to, you have to have a non, ethnic, something reason that's reasonable and can be defended. And I mean, I'm talking prosecutors can get in trouble because you'll have people that when they want to strike jurors, they want to write down their tiny little notes on Post-it notes, right? It'll be
Mhm.
a little dash and have a note on why they were struck. But if you're going to show that later to a judge where you've been accused of, striking jurors improperly and all you got Post-it notes with little one-word notes, that's not sufficient, and I
Right.
question what the prosecutors did on how they struck these or how they're going to defend them. And ultimately, the burden is going to be on the defense to prove this at the appellate level. So they have the burden, but if they're able to meet that burden, then the prosecution is going to have the other side say, look, everything we did was kosher and it was fine. And here's the evidence as to why. And an appellate court can simply review that. But I just want to impress upon you that, I mean, the Supreme Court, even under its conservative kind of leadership at this time, just recently, reiterated the importance of those values in the voir dire process.
No, I got you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that pans out. And I just want to get an idea of the appeals process because everybody seems to have their understanding of appeals. Like, oh, they're going to start the new trial will start next week and stuff like that. I've heard some crazy things about quote unquote appeals. So I just want to hear that from you. Had you so I appreciate that, Nick, for sure. There was a question. I don't know if you've been like I said, I would be very surprised if you've been keeping up with this. There's a story about the bricks and minifigs, the Lego.
No, I don't know what that one is. What is that case about?
Okay, I'm gonna butcher it. But it's a very conflicted story because there was a guy whose dad was getting older in years, but he had collected all of these Lego sets. And a lot of these Lego sets, they're one of a kinds, they're very small runs and stuff like that. And it was somewhere in the excess of about $200,000 in Legos. And so dad is getting older in years. The son didn't want these Legos. So he took them to a place, and I want to say it was called Bricks and Minifigs, to consign them. So basically they would sell them and, they get a cut and he would get a cut and get the rest of the money. Lo and behold,
his property?
It was his property. It was the son's property to sell or consign as he saw fit, or just make them, whatever.
Did the father pass or something?
Well, he was ill, so I think he's in nursing home, I think.
Well, but, yeah, I mean, the thing is if that's still technically the father's property, right? You can't sell property that's not yours. And so could there be some type of, can you reverse the transaction if you can show that it was actually the property of the father and he wrongfully sold property that wasn't his. But if the son's able to say, look, I had the property transferred to me, it was my property, like then, it might be more legitimate. But I don't know much of the facts outside of that.
But no, I'm gonna tell you, that wasn't the argument. The argument is not that at all. Okay. So the argument wasn't, did he have the right to sell it? And as Mackenzie said right here, is for dad's medical bill. I heard a little bit of it. It's the craziest story. But the store itself is a franchise. The store got taken over by the company, and a lot of the products got lost in the quote unquote process of them taking over the main minifigs and bricks company, taking over the franchise store, and property got lost. And lo and behold, all these, valuable collectible Lego sets just kind of disappeared. Or, they say, oh, we don't have record that you had 250. We have record that you had like 40 or something like that. Then it's a very complicated, somebody said it's a saga.
Like,
based on understatement of the year.
Yeah. Some of the comments seem to be indicating that the dad gave power of attorney to his son, and that his son was supposed to sell those Legos for the purpose of funding his dad's medical bills.
That's what I understand. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I said I thought it would be wild if you actually knew about this story, because I heard about it just in passing, and it kind of captured my attention. I was listening like, wow, this is complicated. Because
ultimately though, like, you can't just lose property and not pay for it. That's negligence with respect to holding it. It's probably a contractual violation if there was a contract and it required you to maintain the property during the time you were selling it. So like there's a bunch of ways that you could recover against the company or whoever lost it, right? Mm-hmm. And then, that does sound unfortunate if the son was kind of involved in wrongdoing. And I mean, it's very sad, but I don't think the son was doing wrong.
I don't think the son was doing wrong at all. I think he had wrong had been done to him, because I've never, as much as I've never heard anybody say the son did not have the power of attorney or the ability to consign the Legos.
Some people would argue like conspiracy. I don't know any of these situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I will say, like, a lot of older folks in the country do get kind of, screwed over on a lot of different stuff of this nature. So,
yeah. But well, maybe next time we'll talk about Legos. I'm just kidding. But Nick, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no, hey, good to see you again. I'm glad we were able to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I want to thank the best live chat on the internet. Please, if the mods could just double check that we've dropped Nick's link in the chat. I saw it at one time. If you could go by and check out what Nick is doing over there. He does great analysis. You see, he is definitely not a pre-K law student like yourself, like myself. So he knows what he's talking about. He does a great job. I would appreciate you going by and checking them out. Of course, subscribing and all that kind of good jazz. Make sure we support good content creators like that. And I really appreciate it. There we go, right there. Thank you, Amethyst. Check out what Nick is doing over there. I know you'll enjoy it. Everybody, thank you so much. I'm going to see you all this evening. We got the bearded lawyer. He is coming on tonight to talk about Carmelo Anthony.
So wonderful. Yeah, I know. I've seen a little bit of his work. He's got a good following. I'd be interested to see what he has to say. I think you'll have some good questions for him.
I do have some good questions.
And ask him some of my angles too. I'd kind of want to hear some feedback on that, like the recent Supreme Court cases and stuff like that, on the importance of like not striking jurors on certain grounds and being able to evidence your support for striking those jurors later.
Got it. I have that as a question. Actually, I do have that as a question. So we will be there tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, but that's like lunchtime for you over there. What is it? 3?
Yeah, late
like
lunch,
3 o'clock.
Late lunch, but
a late lunch for sure. But no, I appreciate it, man. Hey, Nick, thank you so much, brother. I'm gonna see you real soon. Everybody, thank you so much for stopping by. I know this was a quick impromptu live stream, but Nick told me about this. I thought it'd be really great to hop on very quickly and talk about how Candace's case has been kicked to July 27th. Who knows? Maybe this will be the last kick, but who knows? It might be the first kick of many. We'll find out for sure. So thank y'all so much for subscribing and supporting Nick. And we will see you all this evening, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So until then, everybody, grace and peace. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Jay Witt Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.